Disclaimer: the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. While we discuss topics related to mental health advice, life wisdom, and alike, the opinions expressed are personal views of the hosts and do not constitute professional, legal, or medical advice. We make no representations or warranties about the accuracy or completeness of the information discussed. Any action you take based on the information in this podcast is strictly at your own risk, and we are not liable for any losses or damages in connection with its use. Additionally, this podcast may contain discussions around addictions, substances, which are intended for adult audiences. We do not endorse any illegal activities. Please consult your local laws before engaging in any actions related to this content. By listening to this podcast, you agree that you are over the age of 18 or the age of majority in your jurisdiction and understand the terms of this disclaimer.
Welcome to the Balancing Forces podcast, where two opposites collide in the best way possible. One brings the fire,
the other keeps it chill.
But together we share life's lessons, hard-earned wisdom,
advice you can actually use.
Whether you need a fresh perspective or just a laugh, we're here to elevate your mind. So buckle up, because things are about to get real and
really funny.
Are you ready to level up your astrology game? Join the Alchemist Laboratory by Solar Systems. For just $33 a month, you get access to 10+ courses, a resource library, manifestation secrets, live Q&As, and so much more. Over $2,300 in value. Transform your understanding of astrology and unlock hidden knowledge. Sign up now through the school app and follow Solar Systems on TikTok and Instagram.
Chapter 24, Your Life Messages Part 2, The Golden Child, the Sibling, and the Special Needs Kid.
So, what would happen, Steve, if we were to run the movie of your life on my wall here, but turn down the volume or hit the mute button?
Steve responded.
What do you mean?
Well,
I went on.
Quite apart from any explicit messages you were given, what messages were conveyed to you and about life? By the simple actions of the most important people in your life, particularly mom and pop, or your siblings and grandparents, if they were influential in your life.
So like what would we see?
Yes, exactly. What actions would I see in the film of your life if I weren't distracted by the sounds?
He paused and thought. Then you could see him shift from thinking to feeling.
Jeez.
Steve started to cry, softly.
Do you want to know what I see, Sven? My older sister couldn't fail. She succeeded at everything. She got everything.
He stopped talking to grab a Kleenex off the coffee table.
So, let me take a shot at it, Steve,
I said, sensing that his tears not only surprised him but would embarrass him slightly to try to talk through, even though he fully knew I couldn't give a crap, and was the very last person who could judge anyone for anything. As I had done more stuff to embarrass those around me, screwed up way worse, and had far more to be embarrassed by than anyone.
Yeah, go.
So, in this film of your life, we see the forgotten kid. You're always off to the side, aren't you? You grew up in the shadows of the golden child. The sun shone constantly on your older sister, and you lived forever in that shadow, if not outright forgotten. That's what we'd see, isn't it?
Exactly,
he confirmed.
But it doesn't stop there. You wrote it in the autobiography you sent to me that your grandparents were around a lot, but they just doted on your kid sister. So, you got the double whammy. You were, well, not special, right? In effect, you were sandwiched between two golden children. You were the vanilla kid. You were plain and couldn't stick out to save your life. Your younger sister took all the positive attention from your grandparents, and your older sister was the apple of mom and dad's eyes. So, you, my little friend, were the forgotten kid, right? The film of your life is you off by yourself, entertaining yourself, you fighting for attention, you trying to do things to have them put the spotlight on you, even a little bit, you even acting out and being bad, later smoking weed, boozing, or skipping school. You either did the perfect kid thing, or the rebel kid thing, or both. And the fact that we're here today says neither worked.
Now Steve oscillated between the nodding and the sobs.
The message we see in the film of your life is twofold. First, you don't exist. You simply don't matter. But also, we see that you felt unwanted. And those messages were not just delivered by mom and dad, but further hammered home by the surrogates, grandma and grandpa. Serious 1-2 punch. There was no pouring love into your love cup, was there? So that film of your life reveals pretty quickly the status of your love cup. The curse of being the golden child sibling. Abuse of the soul comes in many forms, man. Many forms.
Some ironic family happenings. Unless there has been a serious dose of deliberate parenting on the part of mom and dad to avoid it, one very common occurrence in a great many families is that one child is perceived by the children of the family to be the family golden child. This is the kid who can seemingly do no wrong in the eyes of mom or dad, who is perceived by the other kids as being favored, and who is seen as receiving the lion's share of positive attention in the family. The golden child knows it, the siblings know it, and perhaps even the parent is aware that there is an unfair distribution of wealth in the form of positive attention in the family. Of course, the challenge in being the sibling of the golden child is that there is no room to breathe. The golden child sucks all of the oxygen out of the room. The sibling of the golden child, GC, forever lives in the GC's shadow and forever experiences a shortage of love in the old love cup. There is just never enough for the sibling because mom and dad are generally not deliberate in ensuring a wise distribution of their energy and attention. The sibling of the golden child is the one who then grows up feeling they are not wanted, no good, or not good enough, and often that their real self just doesn't matter. It's not a matter of just feeling deficient or unwanted by the parent. It's not just the harshness of the explicit messages, but also the underlying or implicit messages, if we turn the sound back up on the film. I've had siblings of golden children report that they were told such things as, "Your sister is the pretty one." Implicit messages, "You're not." "You were conceived so that your brother wouldn't grow up spoiled." Yes, I've actually heard this from a few clients. Implicit message, your brother is the important one and your existence is fundamentally to meet his developmental needs, i.e., completely subordinate to his. Your sister is the important one. Implicit, you aren't. And you need to serve her. Yes, I have clients whose parents actually said this. Your brother needs the extra attention because he has a bright future. Implicit, you don't. Your sister is the smart one, and we need to do all we can for her. Implicit, you're not smart and you won't be getting as much attention. Your brother can be the first to graduate from college. Implicit, you can't, you aren't good enough. You are the scumbag. Yes, I actually had a father regularly say this to and about his son while heaping nothing but praise on his daughter. A lot of really ugly stuff gets said and done in families, both in intentional and unintentional ways, where there is non deliberate parenting. Remember, positive attention is love, whether it arrives in forms of hugs, words of praise, pats on the back, extra time together, gifts, bragging about the child, extra opportunities, more listening, and more questions, or that glow that comes over the parent's face when they're looking at an offspring they're fond of. Negative attention is harsh words or actions. It is messages conveyed explicitly or implicitly. It is anything that does damage to the soul of a child. What can be the most tragic part of this equation is when the parent is not even aware he or she is doing this non deliberate parenting. Thus, a parent will deny, 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 yet every kid in the family knows it's true. Every kid sees the distribution of wealth. What matters is not what the parent is convinced is happening, but what is perceived by the children as happening. For a parent to see it requires a level of awareness that only comes deliberately, with both effort and humility, not to mention willingness to change. So powerful can be the affection for a golden child that a parent will even redistribute attention they normally have for a spouse onto the special child. This is a level of familial breakdown that is in no way easily solved, much less identified, particularly in a culture that breeds the naive belief children are the most important thing. And as if this isn't bad enough for the spouse, it is a rock solid, impenetrably clear to the siblings of the golden child that they have no hope of getting the love they want. One person in the family is doing all the inhaling, and everyone else is forever out of breath. This problem is only exasperated when the family moves to a special school or city for the golden child, or when there is inordinate allotment of money towards the golden child's life. This just drills the siblings even further with the "you don't matter" and your unwanted messages. The ouch of a special needs child. What's most fascinating, however, is that this disproportionate distribution of wealth doesn't just happen with golden children. I've seen the same phenomenon in families where there is a disabled or special needs child, SNC, meaning no intentional harm at all to the siblings of the disabled one, and driven by sheer necessity, the lion's allotment of positive attention often falls on the disabled one. The oxygen once again gets sucked out of the room. But what makes the situation sometimes worse than with a golden child is the other children can sometimes be called into the service of the special needs of the special child. I have seen this more times than I can even begin to count. I get why it's happening. I'm sympathetic to the great unexpected responsibilities of the parents. Nonetheless, it is tragic, at least from the soul perspective. The underlying message is similar to when the sibling of a golden child is uprooted to a new school or city for the benefit of the golden child. But what makes it worse is that the sibling of the SNC is fundamentally being required or expected to give up her own life energy as a child to another person precisely when she should be getting her own love cup filled. In families where a sibling is expected to live in some measure of service to an SNC, that sibling is then daily pouring love out of her love cup to a more important sibling. For any human being to be forced, either explicitly or by dangling carrots, to give love to another is never a good thing. But compound that injustice with the fact that it's child who is being expected to pour love out of his or her love cup, and you have nothing but an absolute spiritual tragedy, one that will resound through the corridors of that sibling's life long, long, long into adulthood. Want to give a child the clear message that who they really are and what they really want for their life doesn't matter? Just require them to be an ongoing servant to the needs of a special sibling. I've also had clients with a drug-addled sibling who were forever expected to subordinate their own needs to the problem child, in some cases even becoming the de facto parent to the child and the spouse to the parent. That'll empty and mar a love cup good and quick. Remember, the job of adults is to give love. The primary job of the children is to receive it, to be filled with it. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, add on the compound guilt of a sibling of a disabled child feels because, well, he's disabled. So who am I to want my needs met? He's disabled. I'm not as important and shouldn't be so selfish. I'm a dick for even thinking about my needs. Plus, mom and dad are stressed and tired a lot. I should just keep quiet. The guilt over wanting more can be oppressive. Whether the sibling of a golden child, special needs child, or problem child, it is very easy and very common to grow up in the belief that you aren't wanted and or don't matter, not the real you, just the you that is pliant and subservient to the needs and the demands of the important child. Whether unintentional or intentional on the part of the parent, the long-lasting effects on the other children in the family are indisputable. A love cup or two gets a hole poked in the bottom and forever runs a love deficit. The plight of the golden child. Now, here's the crazy upside down part that can be the most difficult for the siblings of a golden child, the parent of a golden child, and in fact, the golden child himself, to get their heads around. Very often, the love cup of the golden child gets a hole poked in the bottom as well, gets filled with crud and manure from being told repeatedly that they aren't good enough, and is only sporadically filled with the types of love that make the golden child actually feel loved. Almost without exception, golden children eventually feel like performing monkeys, or that the parent is living vicariously through them, or that who they really are is irrelevant. Yes, that's right. The golden child is often getting the exact same message the siblings is, just in different forms. The grand irony of the golden child phenomenon is that the entire family calculus and the golden child is experiencing just as much, or more, minimization or death of the soul as anyone else. The oppression of spirit committed by a parent against a golden child cannot be overstated. This parent will often tie the showing of love, not to be confused with the feeling of love, to the golden child with the golden child's performance by pushing the child, either explicitly or implicitly, to do what the parent wants. The golden child is taught to distrust his or her own instincts and negate his or her own wants. The golden child that who he or she really is doesn't matter. His role is to be the role mom or dad choose and or continue to choose without concern for the passions of the child. Life for the golden child is about performance, not authenticity. The golden child is caught in the same soul depleting trap as anyone in the profession of commission sales. Commission sales. Life is forever about quotas, hitting your numbers, i.e., producing results. Life is forever about meeting someone else's expectations for your life, forever about doing, not being or becoming. And the really hideous part of parenting, particularly parenting a golden child, is that the children are easily manipulated to meet the whims and wishes of the parent, which are, despite all protestations to the contrary, nearly always driven by that same parent's own ego fatalities. Particularly effective in teaching a golden child to hit their numbers, so to speak, is withholding love. Golden children are so keyed into the receiving the next reward that they'll endure long droughts of love withheld to get one. Thus, ironically and almost unfathomably to her siblings, the golden child's love cup remains close to empty, hungry, always hungry, and for all of childhood, easily manipulated to serve mommy and or daddy's wishes, unable to distinguish between mommy's wants and her own. In all of this, the whole family algebra of love shifts to being all about mom and dad's plan and ego, i.e., to filling mom and dad's love cups. It isn't and never was about the golden child. At its core, it's about bad parenting, specifically parenting using children to get their own love cup needs met, or at least temporarily assuaged. I have seen a great many golden children become very depressed or unmotivated adults. The pressure, the expectation to succeed, and the desire to win nuggets of love, or at the very least avoid criticism, are so great that this now adult will not even try something new unless there is reasonable certainty of success. And when is that ever the case? Worse, this now adult often has no idea of what he or she wants to do or path he or she wants to go down because his inner voice has been squelched for so long, packed into a box long ago stuffed deep down inside. This is the now adult who has an inordinate orientation to success and accomplishment as opposed to enjoyment of the path or happiness. For this person, nothing can be enjoyed unless it has some form of success attached to it. In other words, more often than not, the golden child's very life purpose, identity, and worth are directly tied to performance rather than simply existence. And the golden child is quite incapable of distinguishing his own inner voice from that of the sales managers, mom and dad. Where the siblings of the golden child gets the first and the third binary gates closed, i.e., that he is not wanted and that the real self doesn't matter, the golden child herself gets the second and third binary gates closed. The golden child forever gets the message that they are good enough only when meeting the expectations of the parents, i.e., a performance driven worth. And that's a nasty life to live, even worse because it conveys the not mattering message, too. Whether regarding a golden child, problem child, the sibling of a golden child, or a special needs child, this inequitable distribution of positive attention in a family is never a good thing. The greater the imbalance, the worse the outcome, but the immediate or long term, read both. What does the film of your life show? Are you the forgotten kid, the sibling of a special needs child, the golden child, the special needs child? What were the messages conveyed through the actions of those most important to you? The real kicker. Here's the ugly part, or the even uglier part, complicity. This is where it gets really nasty. At this point, it's necessary to hearken back to the beginning of the chapter where we looked at many of the cold, often brutal, calloused, and flat out abusive messages conveyed by parents to children, both implicitly and explicitly in word and deed. As we consider the messages conveyed to you in the film of your life by your parents or primary influences, whether you had a golden child or a special needs child sibling, both or neither, it is generally very easy to isolate which parent was the one guilty of the most soul neglect, withholding of love, or even soul abuse in a family. It is easy to see the one that was the roughest, harshest, most critical, most demeaning, most unkind, most absent, most exacting, most impatient, most selfish. But the real nasty part of the equation, the part that is far too often easily and willingly overlooked, is that in most cases, someone else let it happen. Someone else was complicit, usually the other parent. Who commits the greater crime, the parent engaged in the soul abuse or the one allowing it? And see, this is where the family equation gets really sticky. Often the negligent, abusive, hypercritical, cruel, or rough parent is so bad that it is hard to believe anything else truly matters or has any significance. But that abuser exists within a power structure wherein the other primary power source, the other person commissioned with protecting the child, has abdicated his or her power to the other person. Yes, it's done out of fear, but let's not be too quick to jump to explanation and forgiveness, as this robs the child of his soul needs for growth. I had one client, Tabitha, who articulated the terrible effect of complicity. She had been molested by her very successful father as a child, and now was in her late 20s, admitting it for the very first time in her life in my office. Here we were, as we fleshed out the whole equation, discussing her mother. Tabitha thought long and hard when I asked her the rhetorical question of which parent commits the greater crime. She responded with this: Sven, the parent letting the abuse happen is guilty of a different crime. My mom was guilty of betrayal. It was her job to protect me. Every time she let him touch me or pretend in her own mind that it wasn't really happening, and what does it say that I didn't feel safe telling her at all about it? What does it say that I never trusted her with the truth, except that I knew she would either deny it or not do anything about it? Every time she let him abuse my brothers with his brutal words, every time she let him even be around when he was drunk or on drugs, every time she didn't get us the hell out of there, she was turning her back on us. She was choosing her financial security and her insane Southern religious views that say stay in a relationship no matter what, over the safety of her own children. And if that's not textbook betrayal, what is? But you know what, Sven? She said as she dug deeply and really took her time on this giant boulder now falling off of her shoulders. The betrayal isn't even the worst crime, horrible as it was and horrible as the resulting distrust of her still is. The super beep part of my mother's inaction amid all of that was that by not standing up, shutting him down, or getting us the hell out of there, she was normalizing his behavior. My mom was normalizing this beep as a working definition of a family, and it wasn't. That was not a family. She was not a mother. He was not a father. And it has taken 29 years of knowing a few great souls who actually had good families, as well as heavy work with you, for me to finally realize that my mom was wrong. She normalized a situation that was neither good nor normal. Dad was a pig, that's obvious, even though a sick part of me still loves him. But it's not until now that I realized Mom was wrong and just as treacherous in her weakness. And I am so scared that I'll never get past that definition of normal to create a good normal. I'm scared to even have kids, as much as I want them, because I haven't the faintest clue what normal really is or if it's really possible. And you know what? By teaching me back then that that was normal, she taught me that any feelings inside of me that said this wasn't right should be ignored. She completely corrupted any notion I had of right or wrong. For if this violation of a little girl and her brothers wasn't wrong, then what is? How can I possibly know what's wrong or have any internal moral compass if this giant thing isn't wrong? By normalizing it, she caused me to distrust my own inner voice, as you call it, and threw off my internal moral gyroscope. Boom. With that colossal realization so incredibly well articulated, a calm came over Tabitha. In that moment, her life changed. Admitting her father's abuse had been the most powerful words she had ever spoken, but this ran a close second, and was possibly more important to her future family and relationships, as it meant deconstructing her old world and beginning the slow path of building a new one. It meant that her mother was, just as much as her father, strongly conveying the implicit message to her, you don't matter, I do. My fears, my security, my religion matter, your safety doesn't. And by doing so, the mother was engaging in soul abuse of her daughter, punching yet another hole in the bottom of Tabitha's love cup. And it meant she would not also have to find soul nurturers on her own. She was not given any at birth. She would have to learn to trust life, and she would have to be introduced to her own soul's voice and learn to trust it. Whether in cases of abuse, golden children, or special needs children, or siblings of them, when parents are not parenting deliberately and courageously, everyone suffers. Song recommendation. Download the great 70s classic song and lyrics Lonely Boy by Andrew Gold. It speaks so perfectly to the lament of the sibling of the golden child. Journaling recommendations. 1. Which parent committed the greater crimes in your life and what were the crimes? 2. Were you a golden child, problem child, the sibling of one, a disabled child, or the sibling of one? 3. What was the role of the other parent in your life? 4. What got normalized in your life that never should have? 5. Is your love cup full of rocks and sludge, or does it have holes in the bottom? Both? Or was there never anyone who wanted to pour love into your love cup? 6. What or who has kept you alive this long despite the empty love cup?
How awesome is this? This is going to be the book we're going to be giving away. It is an autographed copy as well. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Share this out with your friends. At the end of the series, there will be a giveaway for a copy of your own book. Thank you.